thing about being on the micro level is that when we do have those moments of suck, it's it's not as damaging. We should be lucky, and we should kind of count our blessings in that way, in that regard, because the way that it can really be detrimental to a band that's out there in the limelight. It can really affect their fan base, and their sales. And when you're that big, you have to try to remain that big. So there's a lot of that's a lot of pressure. And I think that I think that that's kind of where we're lucky on the micro level, is that when we do have those moments, because getting back to what I was saying is that I had those moments, like my first album. I mean, I recorded it, I mixed it, I mastered it. I didn't know what I was doing. I, I just did it. I did it to the best of my ability at the time, you know. And I wouldn't say that I rushed it. I didn't rush anything. I did take my time. Could I have spent more time on it? Yeah, I could have. And so I learned a lot from it. And then later on, I put out another album. And I went to a professional studio. Uh, it turned out really good. I had a really, really good drummer come in on the very first session, and I probably would have used him on the majority of it if I could go back, but I didn't have that kind of foresight. So there was stuff that I learned on the second album that I did that it was, even though I got into a professional studio, I was still learning things. There was just learning a lot of stuff, what not to do. And then my third album, I actually got signed to a small label, and I was going through my divorce at that time, and I found this small label that wanted to work with me, and I really needed that vote of confidence at the time. So I got with a deal that I don't think it really suited me. And even though I actually still get along with, these people, I mean, there's no bad blood there or anything. It was just, I wasn't able to be there, physically be there during the process through a lot of it. So when mixing and editing and things like that were happening, there was times where I just wasn't there, and they were moving forward on the project, because I told them that they could move forward with the mixing and the editing without me. Well, it was a mistake, because I did need to be there, and I felt like I got even though there were 2 or 3 songs that were pretty darn good, which, I can say that that was a win. The majority of it was, I would say subpar. So, that was another harsh lesson, that it doesn't matter who anybody is. You don't put middlemen in between you and your product. And but that was my bad, because I didn't have a vehicle at the time, and I was having to drive 2 hours just to get to the studio, and so I was always, I was relying on friends and other band members to get me there. So on my fourth one, I found a guy who, I don't mind saying his name, because I want to, if you guys need somebody to record for you and you're in the Portland area, Justin Phelps at Hallowed Halls. He did my fourth album, and that was kind of where I realized, okay, I finally found the engineer slash producer guy that understands my music. He understands me. We get along great. This is like perfect. And it took me a couple decades to find the guy. And that's kind of the point, is where I was going with all this, is that eventually these things happen. They really do. I think that there's something about tenacity and just the willingness to never quit. I know that we have every reason to not do it, and usually, I don't know, I would say that the majority of the reasons to not do it is because of the financial part. But if you're a creative person, we, like I said, we kind of tip towards that direction of chaos. We can navigate that a little bit easier than a lot of people. And that was just kind of my point in all of this, is that I certainly wasn't trying to slam on Metallica. I just think that they're a really great example of like a band that can be so successful and then have like a dip, and it's like, it's nothing to beat them up over, because they, I would say, recovered greatly from that, getting Robert Trujillo involved. And I've heard their newer stuff, and shit is like it's like old Metallica again. Like I said, those guys have been in our lives too long. I would never like just turn on them because they came out with a couple bad albums. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the point is that they recovered, and we can do the same. And it's even easier for us on the micro level, because those issues aren't as devastating. Like if you go have a bad gig, it's like, I would be grateful that you have some anonymity still, that you're not out in the limelight, because when you're out in the limelight, the scrutiny can be so overwhelmingly, it's just overwhelming, and the pressure and all that stuff. So it's just, I guess the whole point of this one was to, I'm out here making moves still, and I'm finding other ways to try to, make money off of my art. And, I would say for you guys, is keep finding ways to pivot. I started this podcast because this is another way for me to pivot. And no, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's kind of the point, is like, just don't be afraid to go out there and fail. That's a mantra. I keep hearing it from lots of people, and I just absolutely agree. Something that I just recently heard, which I really liked, was the paralysis by analysis. It's like when you just think so hard about doing something, and you're so busy trying to engineer it perfectly, and it's like, sometimes you just don't need to. Sometimes you just, just jump in, just do it. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. The whole point of this is to, keep you guys motivated, keep you plugging away, with AI rearing its ugly head and all that fun stuff. We got to keep coming up. I mean, if I got to keep coming up with reasons to keep creating music, then I will. I'm a creator, so I can create reasons to do it too. And I just suggest that you guys do the same thing, because obviously we create because, it's like breathing. I think it's just part of part of our DNA. It's just who we are, is what we do. And the finances aren't a big motivating factor in it. I think that musicians, most of our currency is validation, just getting validated. So I just want to validate you guys and let you know that I'm out here, I'm still making moves, I want to take this journey with you and show you that, hey, I'm trying to get into the sync side of the sync, and the film and television side of this stuff. And this is what I did to try to make it happen. It's about, taking the steps. If you see an opportunity, you should be willing to do that. And for example, a few months ago, there was an opportunity for me to try out for like a famous band, and they're from Oregon. They're it's the Cherry Poppin' Daddies, and they put out basically a widespread advertisement that they're looking for a guitar player. And because I've been having some issues with my own band, I thought, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll just, bypass all of everything I just worked for, because I just put out this new album. I'm like, I got to tour it myself. And well, maybe I'll just jump ship and I'll just go over to the Cherry Poppin' Daddies. And what I had to do is I had to make a audition tape, an audition video, and send it over to them. They sent me the songs, and right out of the gate, there was like 2 songs that were like, they were pretty, I would say they were, they certainly weren't standard. One was like a Western swing, and I've never played Western swing before. But it had this really cool guitar part, and it was kind of tough, and I was like, wow, I was kind of tripping on it. I was like, wow, this is like kind of out of my wheelhouse. And there was another tune, this really kind of a complicated jazz tune. And so it was already, there was these 2 songs where I already kind of felt like, oh, I'm just not quite sure if this is in my wheelhouse. Well, I did it, even though deep down I kind of felt like I don't even want this gig. But there was something in me that was like, yeah, but you need to try, and I didn't put the love into the video that I should have. I think I went with like the second or third take that I did of the song, I mean, I could have done it a lot better. And there was just something in me, though, that was like, I'm kind of willing to try this opportunity, but I'm kind of not. And I know that, musicians, we struggle with that a lot, like, it's like when American Idol comes to town, you have a bunch of musicians that are like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And they talk themselves out of it. And it's like, well, how much of that is just fear, and how much of that is actually, well, you're accurate, because like that, yeah, you don't fit into that demographic, so you shouldn't. So like, how much of it is actually like you being, maybe wise to knowing your demographic, and how much of it is actually just, well, I'm just afraid. So we're always kind of dancing, between that. And in this situation, I guess I just did, in a way, I felt like, well, deep down, I actually like my music better. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's kind of cool. I mean, I shouldn't just, I didn't come out with all this merchandise and do all these things and put out this album and spend $10,000 on all this, just to not do it and like go play with the Cherry Poppin' Daddies. It was kind of ridiculous. But at the same time, what was I doing? I was kind of seeking some kind of validation from this national act. And it's like, okay, well, sometimes we're looking for validation in the wrong places. And then, a couple weeks later, I get this notification from Jesse Josephson that he's doing this the Sync Up thing. And it was like, oh, I got to do this, because it's a guarantee to pitch my music to the CEO that I think is most appropriate. And, I'm just saying, these opportunities pop up. It's really weird. So my whole point to this one was just to, keep you guys motivated. Keep going.
We got soul satisfaction.